When I talk with artists and creatives about the pain of not getting it out, this is the central idea. It's more painful to keep your creativity inside of you than it is to express it. And let's be honest, expressing your creativity and making your art can be scary, messy, and imperfect. Sometimes nobody claps. But the pain of not getting your thing out into the world is worse, and that's because it usually doesn't begin acutely, and it can take a while before the symptoms show up. Full transparency, I'm not a doctor, which you can probably tell by the sweater and the hair. I'm barely even an adult. But I am an artist, and as a lifelong creative worker, I've spent enough time in the land of, I should really be making that thing, to see the patterns and recognize the symptoms. So these are the 6 most common symptoms of the pain of not getting it out, and what they typically look like if you've got a case. And if these resonate with you, or if you're exhibiting them on the regular, it's probably time to sit down and start making your art. Symptom number 1, comparison pangs. Comparing yourself to other artists. One of the first places creative energy goes when it's not going into the work is comparison, and it can result in total paralysis. You watch or listen to or read something great and think, they're better, so I should quit. Or they already did it, so I'm behind, and the spiral continues from there. Comparison takes all of that humbling conviction, jealousy, despair, and bitterness and blends it up into a torturously debilitating smoothie, which if you drink it enough will turn creativity into a competition, and that's a very painful place for artists to live. But here's the truth. If you're having comparison pangs, it's not evidence that you're failing. It's a signal that you're overdue to sit down and do your work. Symptom number 2, procrastination. We usually think of procrastination as a character flaw, like you're not being the artist you could be because you're lazy and lack discipline and would rather organize your spice rack 6 times a day than do your work. But symptomatic procrastination is really about avoiding the creative work that's most important to you. And this is the equation. The higher and more frequent the procrastination, the more important the work. And that makes a lot of sense because the stakes are highest for us when the art or project means a lot to us. And it's just easier to do other stuff that gives us the illusion of productivity without requiring the vulnerability that our art demands. When your procrastination is at that level, you have to start, not because you feel ready or inspired or because you have the clarity to begin, but because starting is the pain reliever. Symptom number 3, various addictions. I want to be clear on this one up front. I'm not saying just make your art and it will cure serious addiction. Chemical dependency and life-disrupting addiction require support, community, and professional care. What I am saying, though, is that there are a host of smaller addictions that can numb and anesthetize your creativity and pursuit of art. Endless social media scrolling, binge watching shows, compulsive online shopping, games, constant snacking, doom refreshing the news, insanely packed social calendars, constant work availability, always having plans, never allowing yourself to be alone. If you're regularly doing these things while simultaneously thinking about the creative thing you're avoiding, it's time to scale them back and start replacing them with the writing, painting, or performing you're avoiding. Symptom number 4, self-dramatization. Sometimes when our creative energy isn't going into the work, it gets rerouted into personal drama. And this is where life starts to resemble a soap opera. Everything is a big deal. Text response delays become cinematic emotional sagas. Small work conflicts become season finale cliffhangers. Certain emotional battles become syndicated reruns that play on a loop, all of which can be exhausting, but often easier than the quiet, solitary work of making the art you care about the most. And if this is where you're at, don't shame yourself. Just look at it with mindful intention. Ah, that's interesting, a symptom. And then ask the important questions. Where could I de-escalate? Where could I reclaim energy? How could I funnel even 5% of this intensity into the studio, the notebook, the voice memo app, the canvas, the recording session? Symptom number 5, fear flashes. a jolt of anxiety when you think about publishing, tightness in your chest when you consider sending your pitch deck, an urge to distract yourself when you come to the hard part of the chorus. These are fear flashes, and they can be seriously scary, literally chasing you away from the creative work you most need to be doing. Now, I come from the improv world, where you're encouraged to follow your fear in order to make creative discoveries. And I think there's some good medicine in that, because what it means is just this. Your fear isn't proof you shouldn't do something. It's your stifled creativity confirming that you should. If you're feeling intense fear around your art, I encourage you to not interpret that as a red light. Try interpreting it as a signpost that says, this way. Symptom number 6, being overly critical. Excessive criticism is a classic symptom of the creative paralysis caused by the pain of not getting it out. And this symptom can point inward or outward. When it points inward, you can't start anything because everything you make feels stupid. When it points outward, you become a merciless critic of other artists and creatives. This is not illogical, considering that it's easier to evaluate others than to risk ourselves. It's easier to point out problems in external work than to create something vulnerable that expresses your heart. If you want to get biblical about it, it's easier to judge than to be judged. And I don't think all criticism is evil. Discernment is a vital part of artistry, but when criticism becomes constant, obsessive, and depleting, when it stalls progress or prevents you from beginning, it's not discernment anymore. It's the pain of not getting it out. The cure is not stop having opinions. The cure is to get back to making, because the critic voice gets quieter when the maker voice gets louder. If you notice one of these symptoms, you're human. Welcome to the club. Snacks are in the back. Everyone is slightly behind on something. But if you notice multiple symptoms persisting, comparison pangs, intense procrastination, numbing addictions, escalating drama, fear flashes, overwhelming criticism, to the point where your creative work isn't getting done or started, there's a good chance you've contracted a full-blown case of the pain of not getting it out. But let me leave you with this. The pain of creative expression and making your art is real but temporary. But the pain of not getting it out, that pain compounds. And you can't keep stuffing yourself into your own internal storage closet without consequences. If any of this feels remotely or uncomfortably familiar, it might be time to sit down, open the file, pick up the pen, hit record, and make the mess. I'll see you soon.